Okay, it is November 28th at noon, and I'm sitting here with Jim Fritzler in his office on Hastings College campus. So we'll just get started with some background information. Where did you grow up?
Sterling, Colorado.
And what was that like? Was it like rural or?
Rural. I grew up on a farm 4 miles outside of town.
How did your location upbringing like shape your initial lens of the world?
It did. I've always thought because we were out there all alone out on the farm that it increased our creativity because we had nothing else. We were told not to join groups because that was for city kids who had nothing to do. So we always had to invent our own world, basically.
Did your parents or did your family have a lot of talk about like people of color or people of the LGBT community?
Color, I remember. LGBT wasn't a thing yet. We didn't have those. They didn't exist.
What was their original narrative?
My mother was fine with everything always. My father was a racist, pretty much. I don't know that he believed in racism, but yeah, he pretty much did, to a degree.
And backing up a little bit, who all lived in your house?
2 sisters and my parents.
Were your sisters older, younger?
One above, one below.
How did your sisters like affect your narrative, or were y'all close?
Ish, because you were supposed to be. We didn't deal with each other that much as children. We would all just disperse because we had plenty of land to disperse on. So as children, we were all fine. As adults, it's changed.
And so, in what way did your childhood and your upbringing affect your future involvement in your institutions?
Meaning?
Like, in what way did your childhood shape you or prepare you to become like who you are now?
We were taught to be independent, and that was a huge thing, and to be honorable and ethical and moral in a sense. So it was strong, basic core values, I would say, growing up.
Did you grow up with a large religious foundation?
We went to church, I always said, for business reasons. I always thought my father was a farmer, was probably more pagan than anything, in a sense that he would hope weather would fix the world, stuff like that. So, and we went to church, but that's just because you went to church. And then as a musician, I ended up working a lot for the church as an organist and things, so I hung around churches a lot.
And your sisters, did they ever get involved into like social movements and like social change and anything like that?
Yeah. On both sides. One super conservative and one as liberal as I am. So, not so much an activist she is, but supportive. My right-wing sister is much more activist-oriented for everything against what I stand for. Political level.
So you went to Hastings College in the
70s. Yeah.
What made you choose Hastings College?
Our church supported it, and my sister was already going here, so that's all I really knew. And my high school theater director had gone here. So those were my 3 main. I wanted to go further away, but my parents made me stay closer.
Did your younger sister end up coming to Hastings too?
Yep, we were all 3 here.
We're all here at the same time?
At the same time with 1 car. That did not go well. Yeah, for 1 year we were all 3 here. It was awful.
What was the political atmosphere of Hastings College? Was there a large political involvement?
Overall, I would say it was very liberal and activist. It was the 70s, so you kind of had to be. So, yeah, we had Dick Gregory, the activist comedian on campus. We had many political activations, though I still saw myself as a Republican because that's what I was taught to be, you know. But politics wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just, at that age, you weren't supposed to care about that stuff yet, in a way.
So, at what point did you personally start getting involved into activists and into social movements? And
I was involved in high school, kind of passively. It was just, again, because everybody did it. Ecology was cool, and hippies were cool, and left-wing was cool, you know. To actually... Well, we didn't have such a thing as political activism. As groups, it was more individual.
mm-hmm.
We knew people who were activists, you know, but as first activist group I can really remember is Black Panthers as being a group that represented a different narrative, kind of.
Was there were there like any people at Hastings at the time who like identified themselves with like the Black Panthers group or with
There weren't any black people here.
Oh.
There was one. I think one is all I remember, and he was an exchange student from South Africa, highly educated in British colleges and stuff, so not like an American in any way, shape, or form. And race never really touched as an issue here,
mm-hmm.
or in my childhood, because I didn't experience it.
At your time at Hastings, was there ever like a discussion about like LGBT issues?
No.
Had that started yet at Hastings?
No, not at all. No.
Mm-hmm.
No one was gay. And that was it. There was not an awareness of that possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no concept of it at that point that I remember. I remember some guy tried to attack me, and that was my first reference, my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it wasn't. I knew no one. There was no such thing as out that I knew of at that point.
And what did you study at your time at Hastings? Like, what was your major?
Well, there was the major I told my parents, and then there was the major I really did that they found out at graduation. But I started as a psych major, and we immediately started implanting electrodes in rat brains, and that I didn't want to do. So I stopped being a psych major, and knew I'd be in the arts,
mm-hmm.
pretty much. I had already been a classical pianist, doing concerts and stuff as a kid. I was one of those odd freaks, as was my best friend who lived on the farm next to us, which was just, something was in the water is all we could say. But by high school, I'd already been too jaded on classical music, and so started into theater productions in high school. And what I ended up for the degree was drama, speech, English education with a linguistic emphasis, because I had to hide the fact I had a theater major behind other degrees.
Was that like a whole big like combo degree, or was it like?
It was, well, drama and speech were one department
mm-hmm.
back then. So I really double majored with education is kind of how it looked like. And then in the English department, I took all the linguistics classes I could, because I figured those related more to theater than literature classes and things like that.
Mm-hmm. As soon as you graduate, did you pursue like a teaching, or did you immediately know that really wasn't your interest?
I had no idea what you did once you graduated. I mean, that didn't even cross anybody's mind that I remember. And so about midsummer after graduation, my mother said, "What are you going to do?" And it was like, oh, well, I've never had to do anything before, And I don't remember how it happened, but a friend of mine's mother was on the school board, and they had a late hire for English and theater. And I got that at the last minute in Fullerton, Nebraska, tiny little town of 2,000. And found out rather rapidly that teaching was the hardest career in the world, especially public school. And so I immediately started applying to graduate schools, not even really knowing what that meant, because we didn't have the career things that are around now. But and I really was just aimlessly applying to schools, and it finally came down to a spring break. I could either fly to Minneapolis and look at that school, or fly to Austin and look at that school, and the plane fare was cheaper to Austin. So I went to Austin without any appointments, any idea what you were supposed to do, wandered around for a few days and went, it's okay. And ended up with one of the number one directing professors in the United States by pure chance. Mm-hmm. And also Texas was very cheap for out-of-state tuition, even it was amazingly inexpensive. So,
once you got to Austin, how was going to graduate school in Austin different than Hastings? Different than?
It wasn't really at all, because you just were still in that mindset of being a student at school, and you hung around with the people in your school, and the theater department was 1,500 students. I mean, it was its own community, pretty much. And you didn't have time really to get out into the city and get much more awareness of that, So it was just more school that I had to sit through.
At that point, was there more talk about activism and more?
There was more talk, but none in the theater. Mm-hmm. I mean, the shootings at the University of Texas happened maybe 5-6 years before I was there. And the free speech area on campus was right across the street from the theater department. So there were occasionally that had been used in the 60s and 70s for like radical things. But it had late 70s, early 80s, it had just kind of calmed down. I don't know what politically is happening at that point, but social stuff didn't. We were into our emotions and our feelings in our theater school, is all I remember.
So it was very internalized and independent.
Yeah.
At what point did you really start gaining your interest in like at what point in your timeline did you start realizing like these are things that I really care about and things that I like really want to become active in?
It was during graduate school that new ideas and new people I started to meet. I still had the idea in my mind that I didn't want to be gay because everybody in theater was gay, and I didn't want to be like everybody else. I had an inkling I was gay, but again, that wasn't a dialogue people had. It was still just bad, and you hid it, kind of. So, a lot of it probably came after graduate school when I lived in New York and was around opportunities to get involved. And my first job, had I come out by then? I had come out by then, but my first job was associate producer for the Glines Gay Arts Festival. It was the first gay arts festival in the United States. And my job was to go to every gay bar in Manhattan, which was, for a little farm boy from the Midwest, it was very interesting. And I had to leave flyers and posters and explain the event, and I learned a lot. And then my friends were very politically active in this stuff, so that kind of started growing out of that.
Mm-hmm. At this point, did you still have any connections from Hastings? Like, did your friends from Hastings College were they starting to become activists like as you were?
I really kept no contact with anybody from Hastings at all. It just wasn't a thing. I'd come back in contact with some of them, but that was just the past. Same with grad school. A lot of those people A couple of them remain very close, but other than that, not.
Mm-hmm. When, backing up again, when did you first hear about like the Stonewall riots? Or
Oh God, years after it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I lived in New York, I didn't know anything about it. No one knew anything about it except New York gay scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And I just recently watched the documentary on Marsha P. Johnson, the activist, very early, and learned a whole lot of things about Stonewall and the movement that were really horrible. You know, the gay rights festivals in New York, what was it called? The Pride Festival? What was it first called? I'm not even sure, but they were co-opted by the mafia at one point. And it was it's not the rosy world. And they denied any acknowledgement of trans people because they were generally white middle class gays. And they couldn't understand anything outside that. And I really didn't know that till I watched that movie a couple of weeks ago, you know, which is a really ugly piece of the history, you know.
How involved were you in, like, how did media affect your understanding and learning about surroundings? Like, how was media a tool of communication?
Well, growing up in the 70s, we watched the Vietnam War on TV every night. And that without any editing, you just saw it. And you didn't really think about it, you know. But so subconsciously, there was a lot of things involved in it. But consciously, politics wasn't a thing. I was an artist. And I didn't pay much attention to media. I'm sure it affected me, but I didn't knowingly remember it or anything.
In what ways did you, being an artist and being like surrounded in like the artistic community, shape your personal narrative and social action?
Hugely. Most of my really close friends in New York were ultra radical, queer radical, political radical, because one, that was the only theater we could get any work in, was the independent things, you know, but everybody was highly radicalized in the art movements in this 80s was when I lived in New York, and so that's all I saw. And then when I moved back to Austin, it's all I saw was liberal artists, you know. So I never knew anything different. That was the norm.
Do you like have a specific memory of like a specific project that you worked on that was really geared towards social change or social movements?
Most of it. Most of my theater work has been more... I've never felt theater was a good political tool. That what theater could do more was make you think about humanity and your relationship to humanity. So I didn't do highly political work per se. I say that, and then our Austin Theater Company got famous for doing one of the most objectionable shows ever written. That is about God, Mary, and Jesus inventing sexual disease. It was written in the 19th century in Germany. And it's just a raunchy, bizarre piece that we knew. We had no money. So the way we got press was to invite every evangelical church in the Austin area to opening night, of which we probably had 10 people left after 10 minutes of the show because they were, and then we got picketed every night, which gave us more press and more press. And it also started right about the time, the production was very interesting because it started right about the time that the gay disease was being announced in the New York papers. And the play was literally about that without knowing it. So, and we ran it kept getting extended. So the more we ran, the more the political issue became very timely and freakishly strange, you know? I don't remember the question, but I think that might have answered something.
I think it did. So when y'all picked that play to do, did you have any idea that it was going to spread? Like, was it the intention?
Oh, yes. yeah, shock value is definitely a wonderful tool. And it's just what I liked. It was what I wanted to do, and I had these wonderful artists who trusted me for some unknown reason always, and we just had a good old time doing it, and our joke was always, God is going to get us for this. And opening night, about 10 minutes before curtain, 2/3 of the Austin power grid went down, including the theater, and was down for about 20-30 minutes. I had to go out and tell the audience they could either wait or go do whatever. And I went downstairs, and this cast who had been making fun of Jesus and stuff for all the time we were rehearsing are all, a lot of the lighting for the show was done with flashlights because we didn't have access to the lighting. And so I found them in the basement with their flashlights on, holding hands, singing gospel songs. It was just the funniest thing ever, you know. But yeah, we intended to shock and truly offend.
When you invited the churches, was it just kind of like, this is a like, what was...
I'm not sure we really invited them, but word got out somehow. I know we must have invited some, but we weren't that smart. You know, we were just doing what we were doing without any acknowledgement of the world, you know, which I've always found to be a better artistic statement than I'm going to do a gay play to change the world. It never works. It doesn't work that way, you know, so.
What about today? So, like, how did all of these things happening, how did your original time in Colorado to your time in Hastings, your time in Austin, to your time in New York?
God knows. It all just adds up without your knowledge of how it adds up, or without your knowledge of who you are, really, at the end of all that. So it's just all been cumulative from the beginning, and I've been lucky enough to be in situations where I could be honestly expressing those ideas. It seems like we might not be part of that world soon. You know, the attacks on the University of Nebraska for supposedly attacking conservative students and stuff has become a huge issue, and there's a big view of colleges like this as being too liberal. And it's like, so, you know, one, I don't think it's true, and two, freedom of thought and speech is something crucial to colleges, which is not going to probably be allowed in the future, you know. So we're kind of at the end of that honesty, I have a feeling, you know.
So you said when you were at Hastings, there was a lot of like activism or talk back activism, and like would you consider Hastings still kind of a place that fosters activism?
Oh, yeah, I think all colleges, well, I can't say that anymore because there's some weird ass colleges out there, you know, giving degrees that I don't think they should. But I mean, it seems more activist. Well, it's spoken activism as opposed to just doing it because I feel goddamn pissed off. You know, it's more conscious kind of activism. But no, and compared to the community we're in and the state we're in, it's massively commie.
What about Hastings do you think that causes that?
I think it's just what colleges do. I mean, once the hippie movement burned off, you had all these well-trained intellectuals had nothing to do, no place to put it, so they went to colleges. And so that activist liberalism is what informs all of these independent colleges, I think, still, no matter how much the world wants us to stop doing that, you know. It's just by nature of tolerance is the central idea, I think.
What, if you could go back, what movement do you think has carried on the most from your time? So when you first started becoming politically activated, which movement has like carried on the longest or has like had the most steamrolling effect to 2017? I
mean, they come and go with the climate as to what really hits you first. Right now, with our current administration and political issues, it's more politics than gender, to me, that is the issue. And sexuality and things, that's just, I don't have time for that shit right now when everything else is imploding. It's just, but that's the time. I mean, it's been such a huge global shift from Obama to Trump that it's just, I still think we're all treading water trying to figure out how to get out of the mud, you know, as to what do we really do at this point, you know. So I think there's, and with Facebook where you're reminded of 90 causes a day, it becomes just inundating. Like today is Tuesday Giving Day, and I'm frozen. And you're supposed to give to, instead of shopping, you're supposed to give to social groups and things. And it's like, how could you pick a social group out of all the social groups? You know, I mean, from puppies to floods to hurricanes to social to people being beat up to, which one would you pick? And with my pittance of money, what would it really do? I don't know. It's boggling, you know, in that sense.
Do you think I know Nixon's presidency kind of started a lot of social activism. Do you think Trump's presidency will cause the same kind of reaction?
It hasn't happened yet. And no one knows why, but it hasn't. Everything is different, literally. And so no one really knows. I mean, I hated Nixon from the beginning. I hated Reagan from the beginning. I hated the Bushes from the beginning. Trump, I hate, but no one else seems to. I don't know. There's just no. Again, we're so dispersed as a culture. I care about this, and I care about this, and I care about this, instead of, like, what I feel theater can do, what about the human can change to change the thought process of the world? If you just, you know, all the sex harassment and stuff that's going on, you know, it's just like, all this press about it and stuff is just making everybody polarized and afraid. But we need to talk to people about what being nice to other humans is. That's really the bottom line under all these problems, you know. So I don't think anybody knows what to do right now. Between the fear of repercussions and I don't know. It's not a generation that's moving that direction. And it might just be a sign of the times that there's other things going on that are a new thing also, you know. But I don't know.
Do you think we like the activists of today should start looking at activism from the 60s and 70s as a...
No, because it wouldn't be honest. I mean, the 60s and 70s, a lot of it was fake, of course, because it was a movement, but if you try to recreate a political action, you might as well just read up on the French Revolution. It's the best one. You know, we all just copied it to a degree. But no, the tactics wouldn't work now. The media is different. The information system is different. I just don't think it would. No, you have to try to define what you are as a generation by action, you know, not by book learning. That's a dumb thing to say as a college professor. But it's all experience is going to teach you so much more than theory, I think, you know. Which was the whole goal of my life, was to just try everything. Try to not say no to anything. And just go all over and something would happen. Blind faith.
In closing, what...
Are we going to pray?
Yes.
Oh, good.
What advice do you have for people in theater specifically, or in the arts, who want to become more politically active today? Like, what advice do you have for them as they move forward?
Just do it. But don't do it because someone else is doing it. Or it's, again, the arts have to be honest, and especially theater. And if you just decide to be chic and I'm going to do a gay play, oh, fuck, you don't know anything about gay people, you know? And what does it matter? It's like, what do you really care about? And the arts is about responding to life constantly. And it's not a thing, it's not a career, it's, I don't know what it is. And that's been what I've tried to figure out most of my life, you know, why am I doing this stupid thing that no one likes and is highly unpopular and has always been dying, you know? I don't know. You do it because you do it, and don't do it if you don't want to do it. It's stupid to do if you don't want to do it, you know?
Mm. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yes.
Do you have any closing thoughts or feelings?
I don't.
All right.
I'm just alive in 2017. That's all I can admit to.
That's the best we can do sometimes.
I'm not saying it's the best, but it's what I've been dealt.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thank you again.
Yes, thank you.